Hey guys, and welcome to this non-crit Auto Herald of Thunder Elementalist build guide video. And I finally finished the build. I played this build for probably the longest time ever. Yeah, I played for over 2 days in game time. So I managed to, I guess, defeat Sirus 5 deathless first try this league. I can clear tier 16 maps. However, the build does have some issues, so I'm gonna explain how everything works. The alternatives you can do, and the drawbacks, all the things. Just before I go, because I know people are gonna ask, I was using Herald of Thunder MTX. It was God Herald effect, and another one was Fade Guard Herald effect. That one was more like a laser shooting from the sky. Right, now the first thing, so the build is focused around, I guess I should briefly mention that this build costed me around 8 exalts, and you can start with only 20 chaos, around 20 chaos. You get tabla rings, and that's your start. But you're gonna hit at certain wall, and you're gonna not be able to, I guess, progress until you get those more expensive items like Inpulsa and the Lone Messenger Cluster Jewel. This was meant to be like a fast map farmer, and it is. And I was hoping to kind of farm maps, get the currency, get our items. But my luck this league is so extraordinarily, wouldn't say bad, but just lacking of luck. I still haven't found a single exalt this league. I just haven't found any. I also need to thank MB Extreme, because he gave me a loan for Lone Messenger, which is almost 4 exalts, and 6 linked my Impulsa in only 18 fusings. So thanks for MB Extreme, I guess, for sponsoring this video, kind of. Or at least this build. Of course I'm gonna pay it back. Right, so now let's talk about how everything works. So the first thing that from my previous video people got confused about how exactly these storm secret rings work. To make it very simple, all they do is allow Herald of Thunder to be procced on shock. That's it. And also increases the frequency of the Herald of Thunder bolts. The Herald of Thunder itself also, I did not notice before, it has slightly different wording from before. It now creates the storms, and those storms are, you can actually see the visual kind of a storm ball spinning around your character, and that shows that you have a Herald of Thunder active, and it will strike the nearby enemies. We just kind of reworded how Herald of Thunder works, and that's it. It still works the same. By default, it doesn't shock, it cannot shock, and it doesn't have base critical strike chance. It can be built as crit. I'm going to talk about that a bit later. All I need to do is to shock once every like 6 seconds. I keep forgetting how long the Herald of Thunder lasts. 6 seconds. It lasts for 6 seconds. Once you shock, the Herald of Thunder becomes active, and it will keep striking nearby enemies for another 6 seconds. So the Storm Secret Rings basically increases the Herald of Thunder DPS by giving more hits per second. Currently it's like 7.5 hits per second or something like that. Also gives some lightning damage chance to shock, which you need on our skills to trigger Herald of Thunder. But of course we don't have life, so I do have more items that don't have life, so it's a bit difficult to build life pool. That's why I went with Mind Over Matter, and that's basically how I mitigate the damage. You get lightning resistance, you get maximum lightning resistance, you get like lightning mitigation or elemental mitigation from like Wise Oak and other sources, and also then you get, at least in this case, I got Mind Over Matter. So part of the damage taken from these rings are gonna be taken from mana and from life. And also I have Agnostic, which drains mana to heal life, and it is 1-to-1. It doesn't drain 20% mana to heal 1 life. Right, next, so you basically start with Tabla and these rings, at least that's what I did. Then you kind of need to save for Impulsa, I guess. Impulsa is absolutely massive clear speed improvement. Until that, I was using Infernal Cry with the second wind to have more users and less cooldown. Yeah, it's very super budget until you can afford Impulsa. So once you get Impulsa, the explosions started happening and you no longer need Infernal Cry. Then you can use like Enduring Cry to heal your life. and also using it for other reasons, because I have the Spirited Response Threshold Jewel, which used to be for Rallying Cry, but now it's for any Warcry. So you just use Warcry, and for the next 10 seconds you get damage taken, gain as mana over 4 seconds. You also have that mod on the tree from Battle Rose, so 20% of the damage you take is gonna be recovered back as mana. After you get Inpulsa, I was stubborn and I did not want to use Storm's Gift gloves, because I mean I'm already shocking, but turns out it's super amazing with the Inpulsa, but it feels almost like cheating. Like it becomes more like Inpulsa plus Storm's Gift build rather than Herald of Thunder. But this build is, by the way, very passive. I wanted to make this walking simulator, and I really enjoyed this build. Like I said, I played it probably for the longest time ever. So the Storm's Gift is kind of needed for the clear speed, but for single target, the best gloves you can get for the damage wise is Algor Mortis. Enemies in your chilling area take up to 35% increased lightning damage. This is like 35% more multiplier. This one is 33. And you can also sap enemies in the chilling areas. That requires you to hit with lightning. Sap makes enemies do less damage. Yeah, up to 20% less damage. So this is working like as a defensive mechanic as well. And to create that chilling areas, it's very easy. I have cast when damage taken linked to Cold Snap. Previously was using Creeping Frost, but the Creeping Frost, the AoE is a bit too small, and the Cold Snap has the cooldown, but it's not bad, and the AoE is pretty massive. So, and of course it always triggers because using low level cast when damage taken, and if I am hitting enemies, I'm also triggering cast when damage taken. So you can also turn this into completely cast when damage taken build instead of focusing on Herald of Thunder. And yeah, sadly these gloves also don't give life. Yeah, that's another issue. And then lastly, I'm using a staff. Didn't really want to acknowledge the staff, but the staff gives like another almost 20% more damage compared to what I had before. Also, for the long time I was playing with the 5-link Inpulsa, and it was fine. The 6-link on this non-crit build is not as great. By the way, for the 6-link, maybe I should mention the main links for Herald of Thunder right now. Herald of Thunder did not manage to get the quality. This is level 21. It's linked to Hypothermia, added lightning damage, lightning penetration, elemental focus, and innervate. So the innervate does have 2 parts of damage. One is conditional, one is unconditional. Against a single target, when you don't have anything to kill, you're not gonna trigger the second unconditional, the conditional thing, which also gives a bit of lightning damage, but it's not that amazing. However, you can also use Inspiration. It's gonna be a bit harder to get the colors, but I did not want to recolor it, but you can definitely use Inspiration, and that would be another 200k DPS increase. By the way, my current DPS is around 1.2 million, just from Herald of Thunder. So if you use the Inspiration, it would be like 1.4 million. But for that, you also would need Inspiration linked with something else like Flame Dash. 2 Inspiration charges will outdamage Innervate. Energy Leech would also be an option, but I'm using Agnostic, so I have 0 energy shield. Right, so as I mentioned, the staff, I did not really want to acknowledge it, but it's pretty good. Previously I was using these weapons. This just gives a lot of lightning damage. So the difference was that with the staff I have less mana and less mana regen, which means I'm also taking less damage from these rings because it increases maximum lightning resistance, but also don't have as much max mana and mana regen. So the defense seems basically the same as with these weapons. By the way, one of these weapons is with the Hysteria Craft. The Hysteria Craft is not worth it. It's 10% chance to trigger it, just way too low and way too unreliable. But I was using the Hysteria weapon linked with, socketed with the Blind and the Culling Strike. So when it would proc the Fire Burst, it would also cull the enemies or blind them. And by the way, visually I can't really see the Fire Burst happening at all. So the weapons can be cheap, but they can also be expensive. You can also get +2 weapon. You can also get a shield with +3 to maximum lightning res, and also plus lighting gems. +1 to lighting spell skill gems. I hate that wording. The amulet I was also using pretty cheap, but finally I replaced and got a better one. Did I mention I'm using Crown of the Inward Eye? If you can afford, you can actually anoint the Transfiguration of Mind. Is it Mind? Yeah, the one that gives damage from your mana. You can anoint that, but that costs like what, 2 golden oils or something like that. That's a bit expensive. And then use the helmet with nearby enemies have -9 to lighting resistance, or maybe even Crown of the Tyrant, which gives a lot of flat lighting damage, but you would also have less sockets, fewer sockets. As you can see, by the way, from my flasks, I did not get a normal flask. Actually, I actually forgot to replace Quartz flask during the Sirus fight. I guess I didn't need more damage. But I was planning on using Wyzog. I just ran into issues with my resistances. You can also use Winter, the penetration one. Herald of Thunder is not a spell. You cannot use flat lighting damage to spells to add damage to it. So it's not a spell. It also is not a spell hit. There is exploding, but the exploding mace, which says if you kill enemies with the attack or spell hits, then they explode. But I tested that did not work. And the explosions are absolutely mandatory for this build if you want any decent clear speed, and if you don't want to be relying on Infernal Cry. The biggest issue is allies cannot die. That's very annoying even with the explosions, because Herald of Thunder, and I guess another big issue is if there are more than one target, you're gonna lose a lot of DPS, because your DPS is gonna be distributed between the amount of targets there are. If there's one target, you get over 1 million DPS. If there are 2 targets, you get like 600 DPS. If there are 6 targets, you have 200 DPS, kind of like that. It's a bit random, but I know this is a bit unorganized video, and my head is a bit cloudy from all the headaches, so hopefully I don't forget anything. Right, other sources of explosions are not really viable. The explody, but the armor, the physical one, that's expensive, and also, I mean, much better just get Inpulsa than that one. There's also expensive gloves, but then like you couldn't use storm gifts. There's also synthesized weapons, but none on the market. And even if something appears, it's probably gonna be mirror tier items or something like that. What else you can get as explosions? There's also a cluster jewel for hairs, so hairs doesn't scale very well. Obliteration gives absolutely no damage to you, so you would only be using it for explosions. Again, maybe as a cheap option, but I would just rather use Infernal Cry for explosions. Right, so the belt, boots, and kind of amulet aren't really anything special, except for the amulet. I did need the lighting Leech's Life, because, well, previously actually I could run almost any map mode except for the no region. I could also run Reflect. Previously I had Paragon of Calamity, which does synergize very well. You get life leech from lighting damage. You also get increased lighting damage by 40%. You also take 8% reduced lighting damage for that element, because you keep hitting yourself with that. So you also take less damage from rings if you take this. And if you want to just farm maps and not go for the endgame bosses, definitely take Paragon of Calamity and whatever. Maybe you want to mess with the golems, but I really hate having golems. But Beacon of Ruin is kind of a must if you want to farm tier 16 big bosses and Sirus, because the reason is your lighting hits, the ones that would shock enemies, have to hit hard enough, and I don't have hard hitting spells that can shock, because Herald of Thunder cannot shock, and the other things are just being triggered from cast when damage taken, and that's enough for the normal bosses. But if you want to shock big bosses, you kind of have this, because this guarantees shock, and the shock is always going to be at least 15% increased damage taken for those enemies, which is, by the way, 18% because I have some shock effect on Inpulsa. That's how it works. So before Sirus, I refunded from Paragon of Calamity into Beacon of Ruin. If you just want to farm like yellow tier maps or delve, you don't really need Beacon of Ruin. You can just go with Paragon of Calamity. It would also be cheaper. You wouldn't need Lightning Leech Ring, Amulet. Oh, another thing. Supercharged gives around 35% more damage, and what it does is makes your lightning damage with non-critical strike is lucky, and that just basically means it rolls damage number twice and picks the highest number. Someone mentioned before that this means that it on average it gives like 35% more damage, and in PvP it reflects that, and I would say that's kind of almost mandatory, but right now it's expensive, and the patch to improve the cluster jewels is gonna be at the end of the week. I did not want to wait any longer, so I kind of wasted currency buying that. Yeah, and the rest is just life, and also trying to reduce the mana reservation, because Mind over Matter and Agnostic, you want your effective life. By the way, this has barely 6k effective HP, and by the way, this works very well in lab, because Agnostic, you almost never see your life being drained. Agnostic just keeps draining mana to heal life, and it's very easy to recover mana. By the way, there are a couple cool things. Dynamo, that's why I have Immortal Call on self-cast and on left click, because it's instant. It does not stop me. It's being wasted most of the time. However, each time I cast Immortal Call manually, then I trigger Dynamo. Recover 20% of mana over 1 second when use a guard skill. You can use other guard skill, but Immortal Call has the lowest cooldown, I believe. So yeah, and also using Enduring Cry, because it's super amazing. It heals a lot of life. And after I use any, I guess, War Cry, but especially Enduring Cry, I also trigger this jewel, which basically makes me recover mana faster. So there's lots of synergy. Of course, taking more mana, as much mana as I can, taking the mana flash recovery things, elemental overload, and also one of the cast damage. So elemental overload, triggering elemental overload could be a bit annoying. So I have one of the cast and damage taken. Where is it? Oh yeah, it's actually 5 link right now. I have one of the cast and damage taken linked with Shock Nova, Culling Strike, increased critical strike chance, and Blind. This is for utility, and increased crit chance helps Shock Nova proc elemental overload, because it does have decent base critical strike chance, and adding crit strike support increases the chance. It does have only 15, barely 16% critical strike chance, but it is being procced almost all the time, so it eventually refreshes elemental overload. Sometimes it's not very reliable, and sometimes the damage may feel low. Right, I guess I should talk about the rest of my support gems and links. So I do have one cast on damage taken linked with the Cold Snap. This is just to apply the chill, because for hypothermia and the Algor Mortis gloves. Then Wave of Conviction to apply lightning exposure, linked with increased AoE just to help a bit cover more screen. Another Enduring Cry on a self cast, Flame Dash, Second Wind, Immortal Call. The Second Wind is basically for Enduring Cry to be able to use more frequently. It does affect Immortal Call, which reduces the cooldown but doesn't give an extra charge. In the gloves I have Shock Nova, Curse on Hit, Conductivity, and Innervate. The Innervate is just to increase the shock chance, and this is just to start the Herald of Thunder. At the start of the map, you use it once, it triggers Herald of Thunder, and then you can go. It will keep rocking our castman damage taken, and will keep refreshing the shock and keep refreshing the Herald of Thunder. But I do have the same gems in the other gloves, just so I can swap them faster. This is for the single target Algor Mortis. It's pretty important to have those, and they are cheap. The storm gifts, the implicits don't matter, just any storm gifts. Yeah, and like I said, the Herald of Thunder links are Hypothermia, Either Lighting, Lighting Penetration, Elemental Focus, Innervate. You can use Awaken gems, of course you would have more damage. You can also add more damaging flasks. Yeah, the belt could also be with the mana recovery rate, and I think mana recovery is way more important than life, because if you run out of mana, everything stops. You can't use Warcry to heal yourself, you can't use Immortal Call to trigger Dynamo node, You can't cast anything, you can't flame dash anything, so the mana is more important. But of course it would be difficult to get good and good belt with the certain resistance. Resistances was an issue because I'm using so many unique items. All of my resistance basically come from amulet, boots, and belt. The rings have a bit of lighting res, the gloves have cold and lighting, and the other ones have lighting, so it's also was difficult to get the right resistances for the Wise Oak, because once you swap the gloves it changes. Now you need something else more, but it was a bit annoying to mess with that. So I also know that a lot of people wanted to know what I think about the assassin version of this and the crit version, and well, personally it's hard to wrap my head around how it would feel like. I feel like it would be much more expensive, but actually even better, MB Extreme is doing basically the same build but as an assassin, and he does have the currency to do anything he wants with that build. So if you want to see what assassin of this build would look like, what it could do, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna destroy all the content as well, and even more than this build, I'm gonna link his YouTube channel in the video description, along with the path of building import code for this build, if you want to copy. And yeah, this is gonna be a meta. I already said in my first video that I think this is gonna be a meta thing, and people are gonna be using this to speed farm maps because it's just so amazing. I enjoyed this build so much. But it's time to move on and start a new project, and I don't want to reveal it yet because I haven't video crafted yet. Well, I guess I'm gonna reveal it, or at least what I want to do is the next build is most likely gonna be using the reworked Spectral Wolves. Yep, I'm gonna be cosplaying as Rigbold. So anyway, I think I covered. Oh wait, did I talk about the passive skill tree? Yeah, I did talk about the passive skill tree. If you wanna share your own cool ideas what you can do with these rings, because you can definitely do a lot of different things, do share them in the comments below. We can all read and maybe get inspired by them. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.